Let go.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Slavery. No, seriously, that's what this show is about. So, if you guys have a secondary activity, like you need to clean, you gotta do homework, you like to draw, paint, whatever, I would do that now, because this is gonna be a longin', and this is gonna be a story time type video. I don't know if you remember, but like a year-ish ago on my channel, I said I was going to start a new series on here called Anime Story Time, where it would basically be a watching insert anime here, so you don't have to type video, so that non-anime fans or anime fans that just don't have time to watch everything can learn the lore about other anime and shows and whatnot, and it would be super cool and fun. So the crazy thing is, after I made that declaration, I went to Germany for an entire year. Oopsies, but now I'm back in the States and I have all my equipment and I'm ready to journal. So let's get into it with the first episode of our series, Anime Story Time, with a banger of a banger, Sugar Apple Fairy Tale. Okay, so boom, episode 1, The Scarecrow and the Crow, begins in Highland Kingdom, and we're in a flashback, whoosh. And our main character, Anne Halford, she's just a little girl, and she's watching her mom make a sugar confection, which is basically like a sugar statue. She's making a statue out of spun sugar. And she's telling her about how fairies were the actual original inhabitants of Highland Kingdom, and their lives used to be so fun and beautiful and peaceful and prosperous before humans came around. And the little girl is like, oh my god, that makes me feel so bad for fairies now. And you're like, what happened to fairies now? And her mom is like, well, it all happened because 500 years ago, the humans staged a quote-unquote rebellion and made all the fairies their servants. And listen, Mama Halford, her name is Emma. Miss Emma Halford, she sends servants. The fairies are literally slaves. The humans literally enslave the fairies. But anyway, she's like, yeah, because people are always like, oh, the fairies are really stupid. How you have magic powers and wings and you can fly, but you still lost to a bunch of normal people. You're so dumb. And the mom was like, actually, fairies aren't dumb. They're just so few in numbers compared to humans. They just got overpowered. And then she finishes her little confection, and it's a beautiful little statue of a fairy. And she's like, you know, sugar confection, Anne, her daughter, she's like, Anne, daughter, sugar confections are actually sacred food because they can extend a fairy's lifespan, but also they bring good fortunes to humans. So it's a win-win, it's a dub-dub. And she said, you know, the first sugar artisans, aka the people who make sugar confections, were fairies. They were the first ones to refine apple sugars into silver sugar, which is, silver sugar is what you use to make these little sugar confections. So silver sugar artisans, and most importantly, vocab word, are you ready? Silver sugar masters should never look down on fairies. And Anna's like, period, mama, I agree. And then we immediately cut, a few years later, to the mom's gravestone. You knew it was coming. This is an anime. Moms always die. Rule number 1 of not dying, don't be a mom in an anime, okay? So Anne, she's now 15 years old, holla. Which is the coming of age apparently in this world. Gross. But Anne is now 15 and she put some flowers on her mother's gravestone, R.I.P. Emma. Pour one out for her. And she's like, don't worry, mom, I'm gonna be a silver sugar master just like you. Roll the credits. And so, I bet you're wondering, dear listener, how do you become a silver sugar master? You become a silver sugar master by competing in the sugar confectionery exhibition that is held every year all the way in a town called Lewiston, which is actually really far away. So Anne is packing her bags, ready for the long journey, when all of a sudden, the crustiest, dustiest, most audacious, most annoying man, isn't it always a man, comes in, and his name is Jonas. And Jonas is like, Anne, girl, where you going? And Anne is like, oh, I gotta become a sugar master, girl. I gotta go to Lewiston. And he's like, well, you see, the thing about that is you're actually really short and skinny and scrawny as a scarecrow, so I think you'd like probably die on the way anyway. So
maybe, fun fact, I've actually been in love with you this whole time, so maybe you should just marry me instead, because I'm a sugar artisan and you're a woman. So if I get your dream and you don't, it's kind of like you got your dream because you're a woman, so you live through me, right? And also your mom just died. I don't know if you know that your mom just died, so you have a hole in your heart, and I can fill that hole in your heart.
Oh my god, Jonas perish and die. Oh my god, Jonas die in a whole challenge. Jonas die in a whole challenge. Yay! But she's like, no, actually, I don't want to do that. I want to follow my own dreams and be my own person. And he's like, well, how about this? My uncle owns the
Radcliffe Mercury Sugar Artisan School Workshop.
So actually, not only would I be able to achieve your dreams better, I would be able to achieve it through nepotism, so it'd be easier. So you could live your dream through me easier, technically, so you should just marry me instead of following your dream on your own. And as he's blabbing on, it's giving like Gaston Bell blabbing on while she runs out. That's basically what she does. She's like running out while he's talking about himself and how great he is and how blah, 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 blah. And then in very Belle, Beauty and the Beast fashion, she's like, I hate the idea of marrying someone and not having my own dreams. And then she hops on a carriage while he's still yapping all the way to the next town over. Okay, and then Anne does indeed make it to the next town over. This town is called Reddington. Woo! Let's get a dub in the chat. Dubs WN in the chat. She made it to the next town, and when she's walking around, she sees like a crowd, and the crowd is surrounding this tiny little fairy. We're gonna call him Little Fairy, and a little fairy is getting beat up by a fairy hunter. A fairy hunter, despite their name, they don't kill fairies. They capture fairies so that other people can buy them. But Little Fairy tried to get his wing back from the hunter, and so the hunter was like, you think you have autonomy, and like is beating him in the middle of this crowd, and Anne cannot stand for this, so she kicks the hunter in the back of the leg, and so Little Fairy grabs his wing and is like, woo, I'm free, and you know what? I can't thank you because you're a human, and I'll never thank a human, but I'm free. And then the hunter is like, he turns to Anne, and he's like, oh, that was my rent, and he and he goes to swing on her, but then people from the crowd finally jump in, and they're like, excuse me, we can excuse slavery, but we can't excuse hitting a 15-year-old girl. Police! She makes her way over to a fairy market, which was her goal. She wants to buy a warrior fairy to escort her all the way to Lewiston, and I'll tell you why later. But as she's walking by and she's looking at all the fairies, she sees one tent that's labeled as defective goods, and she's like, why is this defective goods? She goes in the tent and she sees the most beautiful looking fairy you've ever seen in your life. Long, gorgeous hair, gorgeous eyelashes. She says, beautiful doesn't do him justice. And then he opens his mouth and she's like, what is he going to say? And he's like, you look so familiar. She's like, oh my gosh, even what he says is beautiful. What is he going to say next? And he's like, you look familiar because you look so
stupid and scrawny like a scarecrow. Skinny and scrawny like a scarecrow. I'm gonna call you Scarecrow. Hey, Scarecrow.
And then the fairy trader comes up. New vocab word. Fairy trader is the person who actually sells the fairies. So the fairy hunter captures the fairies, sells them to fairy trader. Fairy trader sells them to rich people who need fairies. Fairy trader is like, yeah, he's got a sharp tongue and he insults everyone. That's why he's defective, I guess. He's like, that's crazy thing for a companion type fairy to have. And he's like, he's not a companion type fairy. He's actually a warrior fairy. Isn't that what you were looking to buy? He's up for sale. And she's like, there's no way this beautiful fairy is a warrior fairy. But warrior fairies are big and burly and ugly. And the fairy himself is like, can you shut up and just buy me now? And then the fairy trader's like, whoa. That's the first time he ever said he wanted to be bought by somebody. I will tell you though, he killed the hunters who caught him. And she's like, well, YOLO. And she buys him anyway and is given one of his wings. And she rolls up the wing and she puts it in a bag that she keeps around her neck. So after the deal is done and she's got her fairy and everything is cool, she turns to Mr. Fairy again and she's like, hey, hi, this is a crazy meeting here like this, but let me just say, I don't even like condone slavery. I'm a hashtag ally and I would really like to be your friend. My name is Anne Halford. How about you? What's your name? And he's like, why would I tell you my name? I don't like you. We're not friends. You literally just bought me. What the heck is wrong with you? And she's like, okay, fine. You don't want to tell me your name? And you keep calling me Scarecrow? You seem scared to tell me your name. Crows are scared of Scarecrow, so I'll call you Crow. And he's like, wow, you're really corny. But my name is Shall. And she's like, woo, that's a little ethnic for me. I'm a hashtag ally though. So can I just call you Shall? Like, which one is your first name, last name, middle name? And he's like, we don't got first names or middle names. That's my whole name. That's a human thing. And she's like, okay, Shall. I'll just call you Shall then. She's like, don't even worry about it because I'm going to give you your wing when we get back to Lewiston. And the reason why she has his wing, she explains, is because wings are a fairy's life source. It's not just like for flying. It's basically their heart. So if you cut off a fairy's wing and you hit the wing, it still hurts the fairy like a lot, and they can even die from the pain. So the reason why humans actually took over is because they cut off one wing of every single fairy, in order to like hold it over them and control them and enslave them, you know? But she's like, don't even worry about it. I'm going to give you your wing back once we get to Lewiston. I just need you to help me get there. And he's like, you're so naive and dumb and stupid. And she's like, I don't care what you think because my mom wanted fairies and humans to be friends and I follow my mom's dream and I believe in my mom's dreams. And he's like, okay, whatever. I only asked you to buy me because it's easier serving a fool than somebody with an actual brain, idiot. And that's what he says. But in his mind, he's thinking, she really reminds me of someone, but I can't put my finger on it. But we don't have time to think about this because we're on the road and you're about to find out why she needed a warrior fairy in the first place. You want to know why? Because in between Reddington, the town that they're currently in, and Lewiston, which is their destination, it's called the Bloody Highway. It's called that because on that strip of land there is no other town or civilization. It's just bandits and cannibalistic crows and wolves and every terror known to man. It's a spooky place out there. And so they're on the road, they're on a carriage, and she finds herself like mesmerized by Shall's wings, and she accidentally does a hashtag bad ally moment, and she like accidentally reaches for his wings, and he's like, ugh, don't touch me. And she's like, oh shoot, he's already really annoyed with me and I made it worse. I'm so terrible. Why would I do that? That was so rude. And she falls into a fitful sleep. And she starts to dream about a life where her mother never died. And this sounds all hunky-dory, but it's actually terrible for Anne, because in the dream, her mom is like, Anne, girly pop, stop following my dreams and follow your own dream. And Anne is like, and she wakes up in a stupor to Shal, like leaning over her, like laying above her. And she's like, what's going on? He's trying to steal. I don't know about steal. He's trying to get his wing back because she's wearing it around her neck. And he does one of those, swiper, no swiping. Oh, man, type moves. And she's like, about any of it, I don't even care if you try and kill me. When we get back to Lewiston, I'm going to ask to be your friend again. And he's like, I don't care about you, and I don't care about friendship. And he goes to bed. But when he moves away, he notices what is so familiar about her. He notices that she smells like silver sugar. And then he suddenly has like a flashback, like whoosh, random passing memory of this beautiful blonde woman. And he's like, she reminds me of Liz. Who's Liz? I don't know, because it's the next day and we're back on the bloody highway. And it's dangerous, it's treacherous, and Shal and Anne get attacked by bandits. And she's like, oh my gosh, Shal, this is what I got you for. Can you please help me? Can you please protect me from the bandits? And he's like, girl, you think I'm here out of like the kindness of my heart? I'm not going to do anything unless you like threaten me. I'm not going to do anything unless you like force me. Obviously, I'm not just going to go ahead with what you want just because you asked me politely. We're not friends. And she's like, no, I'm going to give you an order because we're friends. And low-key, like deep down inside, he also doesn't want her to die. So he's like trying to push her to give her an order. And he's like teasing her like, ooh, you about to die. Ooh, you can't give an answer. Oh, goody two-shoes, stupid, scrawny, scarecrow looking girl. And she's like pushing him out of his face. And she's like, if you don't get out of my face, I'm gonna punch you in the face. And he's like, that's good enough for me. He says, at your command, Mr. Scarecrow. And he kills all the bandits. A shing, a slice. And that's the end of episode 1. Now we're on to episode 2, the Bloody Highway. So, as you know, we're on the Bloody Highway. We're at a fort shelter, seeking refuge, and guess who stowed away in the carriage? Jonas and his little labor fairy. That's right, Jonas stowed away, snuck up on the carriage to try and take Anne back to the village. And she's like, absolutely not. He's like, please marry me, I love you. And she's like, no, go back home. And he's like, I can go back home, I will absolutely die. And she's like, fine, I guess you'll have to stay here with us. And she's like, Shal, no, he's annoying, but can you please like protect him too? And Shal's like, we literally just had this conversation. I'm not going to do anything for you unless you like force me to. We're not friends. And she agrees to like give him orders, but she says she promises to always try and ask first. And so the gang is now Anne, Shal, and Jonas, and Kathy, which is his labor fairy. He's a tiny little fairy with red hair and a fiery red personality. And if you haven't caught on yet, the labor fairies are the tiny little fairies like the one we saw in Reddington, and warrior fairies, aka the fairies who fight, are usually big and burly, and companion fairies, which are like escorts basically, are usually pretty, which is why everybody thought that Shal was a companion fairy, but he's actually a warrior fairy. So Kathy is a labor fairy, unfortunately. And Anne is serving up dinner at the fort shelter. She's like, okay, Jonas, you're part of the crew now. Here's your bowl of gruel. And Kathy's like,
ugh. You silly village girl, get that out of my master's face. That is unhealthy and ugly just like you. My Jonas will eat something much more healthy than I make.
And I was like, okay, T, okay, that's fine. Then I'll just make food for Shal. And she gives the food to Shal. And he's like, dang, you know you're not supposed to serve a fairy before a human. That's kind of like against the rules. You should have served yourself first. She's like, I don't care about that. You could go ahead and eat. Thank you for really enjoying my food. And she finds out that fairies actually eat by absorbing it through their hands. They don't like put it in their mouth. It like dissolves in their hands. And so he's like, yeah, that's how we like absorb energy or whatever, but we can't really taste it through our hands. The only thing we could taste is silver sugar. So Anna's like, okay, I promise to make you a delicious sugar confection, and I learned how to from my mom. Fun fact, I am a sugar artisan. And so she goes into the carriage to try and make a confection for him out of silver sugar. And guess who is in the barrel of silver sugar? The little fairy from Bennington, you know, the one that like Anne kicked the hunter, and then he was free, and then he was like, I'll never think a human. It's him. And he's like, hello, I ate all your sugar and then I fell asleep. Sorry, teehee. My name is Mithril, and we're gonna call him Mithril because that's his nickname. And he said, you know, I said that I would never think a human, but you did a very good deed today, so I'm going to stay with you until I can repay you with an impressive favor until the day I die. Okay, so now the gang is Anne, Shal, Jonas, Kathy, and Mithril. We're all together. And then the next day, the next night, during dinner, once again, Anne tries to make dinner for everybody, and Kathy is like,
ugh, ugly and unhealthy just like you. Jonas will not be eating that. Ugh, I don't even know why he likes you. You're so ugly and annoying.
and Jonas is like, hey now, do not be rude to Anne. And then he says, Kathy, disappear. And then she turns invisible. And we're like, whoa, I didn't know fairies could do that. And Jonas is like, don't even mind her, she isn't even trained well. Ugh, stupid, ugly fairies. And Mithril is like, whoa, invisibility is Kathy's fairy power. That's really cool, but it's not as cool as me. Trust me, Anne, my power is even better. And Anne isn't even thinking about that because she's like, dang, Jonas treats his fairies like really poorly. And so she finishes the night thinking about that and Jonas's treatment of fairies. Okay, so boom, the next day, they're done with the fort shelter, they're back on the road, back on the bloody highway, and it's like, but I am curious about these fairy powers. So she asked Mithril, she's like, hey Mithril, what is your fairy power? And he's like, well, I'm glad you asked about my secret weapon. You know Kaido from Psyche Gang? That's basically him. He's like, you have no idea the power I wield. He says, in order to explain my power, I must first go back to my beginnings. Fairies are born from all sorts of objects, like berries or trees or water drops or even jewels. The energy of an object condenses when a living being gazes upon it in order to create life, in order to create a fairy. I was born in the northernmost part of Highland Kingdom. There lies a great lake, Lois Lake, and I was born from a drop of water that landed on the leaf from that lake. And she's like, whoa, that's super cool. What about Xiao? What was he born from? And Xiao, you know, he's in his nonchalant era, so he's like pretending not to hear, pretending not to care about the conversation. And Mithril is like, well, I can see that he can materialize a sword, so he must be born from a precious stone. Judging by all the black he wears, he's either emo or he was born from obsidian, because fairies born from precious stones can create sharp things. He's like, but that's nothing compared to me. You have no idea the power I wield. I can control water. He's like, let me show you my true power. And then he like makes a water droplet fly through the air. He's like, behold the power I wield. She's like, is that all? Is that it? He's like, what do you mean, is that it? I'm Moses. I parted the Red Sea. I can control water. And they're all laughing and giggling and having a good time, right when a huge flock of wild crows attack them. And so they all hide in the cart while Xiao starts killing the crows outside. And Anne gets worried because there's a lot of crows and only one of Xiao. And Mithril is like, don't even worry about it. Xiao is obsidian. He won't get hurt and he won't break. And just as he says, Xiao kills all the crows. Brrrah. However, it did take a long time since there were a lot of crows and only one of Xiao, so they're behind schedule, and Anne starts freaking out. She starts crashing out. You'll know Anne to be a bit of a worrywart as the time goes on. You think she's a nice little precious optimistic girl, but she's got some demons too, let me tell you. So she starts freaking out, and Xiao is like, it's okay, we can still get there. And she's like, no, let me check the map. There must be somewhere nearby that we can get to, because we're not going to make it to the next fort shelter in time. So she checks this old decrepit looking map, and sure enough, there's a doctor's inn on the map. And she's like, okay, bandits don't attack doctor's inns. And Xiao is like, well, this map is kind of old and decrepit looking. I don't know if we can really trust this. He seems to notice that he touched a nerve with her. She's like, no, we have to trust this map. I promise you, this has to work. I trust this map more than I trust myself. And he's like, okay, what is your deal with this map and following it and being on schedule so hard? It's not that big of a deal. We'll get there. And she's like, okay, truthfully, my mom died 2 weeks ago, and I'm using this map because it's hers that she drew herself to get to Lewiston. I need to get to the festival, and I need to compete and win, because not only will it make me a silver sugar master, the festival takes place on Pull Soul Day, and on that day, all the souls that died that year get pulled to heaven. And so on that day, if you want to send the dead up to heaven with anything, you have to do it that day. So she says she wants to send a winning confection by an honorary silver sugar master up with her mother to know that she doesn't have to worry about Anne anymore. She says, so we have to get here, we have to get there, and we have to trust the map, and I believe in my mom, and I believe in my mom's dream, because I want to send her up with a winning confection, with a confection that she will love. And that is the end of episode 2. Okay, lock in, y'all, because episode 3, the sugar apple is the tree of betrayal. Dun dun dun. We're about to get into it, okay? So it turns out Anne's mom is right, and there is a doctor's inn along the way, and they're like, yay, we can finally get a hot meal and some shelter. So they find shelter, and they ask if they could eat dinner. However, the owner is like, yeah, we're actually a racist establishment, so the only way that your fairies can eat with you at the table is if everybody else in this restaurant agrees. And everybody else is like, yeah, we're cool. There's only like 2 other tables. One such table that invites Anne and the gang to sit with them is a man named Hugh, and him and his super pretty gorgeous boyfriend friend, whoa, who says that? His friend / bodyguard Salim are sitting and eating their dinner, and they're like, whoa, that's a really pretty looking companion fairy you got right there. And Anna's like, he's not a companion fairy, he's a warrior fairy, and he's super strong. And Hugh was like, we'll see about that. Let's see how he fares with my partner then. And the pretty friend Salim tries to attack Shal, but he easily dodges it, and he and he evades all the attacks. And so he was like, all right, Celine, that's enough. It was a pretty good show of strength, Shall. I believe you now, and I'm so sorry for my rudeness. That was actually very rude of me. You know what? I'll pay for all of you guys to stay at the inn. And they're like, whoa, that's like a lot of money. We couldn't ask you to do that. He was like, fine. How about I pay for your stay, and I heard you guys say that you to be sugar artisans, yes? How about you each make me a sugar confection? And they're like, well, I don't know, because she's actually gearing up to compete in the exhibition. And she's like, it's okay, I have enough barrels of sugar. You only need one. You have to like keep one barrel of sugar unused during the exhibition so that the judges can make sure your sugar hasn't been tampered with. So she's like, don't trust me, I have plenty of sugar left. So her and Jonas go to the bag and start making some sugar confections. And Jonas takes this as another opportunity. Why is an optimist? I wish he wasn't. I wish he would just die in a hole. And he's like, you should marry me. You genuinely should marry me. I don't even know why I'm here. I don't want to become a sugar master. And she's like, well then why are you here? Why are you a sugar artisan in the first place? And he's like, honestly, I want to be a sugar Viscount. That is a sugar master that works exclusively for the king. And she's like, dang, I guess he does have dreams. But no, thank you. And she rejects him again and asks him, can you please stop proposing to me and stop talking about this again? It's making me very uncomfortable. And he's like, And so they start making their confections. She makes a little flower because she's like, I want to make something that my mother would make, and my mom loves flowers. She makes a little flower, and Jonas makes a cute little cat, and he looks at those confections and he's like, they're both very beautiful. Smash! And he smashes them both. He's like, Jonas, yours was very pretty, but it lacked ingenuity, and you're a much better artisan than Jonas, but it kind of seems like an imitation. It feels like you didn't put any personal style into it. If neither of you approve, you don't have any chance at your dreams. And so Hugh and his very pretty boyfriend, and his very pretty friend Salim leave, and Anne is crashing out once again in her room later that night. She's like, oh my god, I'm never going to be good enough, I'm never going to be tall enough, I'm never going to be pretty enough, I'm just going to be a skinny little amateur scarecrow artisan for the rest of my life, and my mom is going to be sent up with shoddy work. I'm going to freak out, I'm crashing out. And Shal is like, hey, listen, fun fact about me, I'm really old, and I'm actually way too old to be in a romance anime with you right now, but I'm hoping there's a time skip at some point. He doesn't say that, that's what I say. He only says, listen, I'm really old. And humans, one thing I've noticed from being really old is that, unlike fairies, humans are constantly changing. One day, you will not be a 15-year-old girl. You will be a beautiful, tall woman and a very skilled sugar artisan that you desperately want to be. But right now, you're as good as you need to be. And he's like, you know who you remind me of? You remind me of this girl named Liz. And when I was first born, she was the first thing I ever saw. She was a tiny little 5-year-old girl who gazed upon an object and it turned into a fairy. But she was born from nobles and she was secluded away from society, so she didn't even know what a fairy was. And she was like, are you my brother? Are you like some older guy? Who are you? And that really touched him. And even though the first time he ever saw her, the first thing he ever saw in the world was her as a tiny little 5-year-old girl, 15 years later, her hair turned gold and she became a tall, beautiful, wonderful, amazing woman. And one day, that will happen to you. And Anna's like, wow, that's so lovely. What happened to her? And he's like, humans killed her. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And then the next day, they're back on the highway, and Anne is still thinking about Liz because she's like, dang, the way Shal holds Liz really close to his heart and still remembers her as a means to move on sort of reminds me of how I feel about my mom as a means to move on, except Shal's means is filled with like ire and despair because she was killed by a human. You know, humans are what caused Shal's heart to freeze over. Okay, so boom, they reach another fort shelter finally, and it's nighttime, so they're like, let's just stay here for the night. And she's like, dang, Shal, you're gonna sleep out without any freaking blankets? And he's like, fairies don't feel cold, actually, but we do like sugar, and I remembered you said you were gonna make me a confection and you never did. And she's like, oh snap, okay, I'm going to go make you a confection. And so he goes into the carriage and she opens one of her sugar barrels and they're completely like empty. And she's like, oh my gosh, all of my sugar's gone. And Kathy is like, I saw Mithril sneak into your cabin and eat all the sugar. And Mithril's like, that's a lie. Kathy is a dirty liar. And Anna's like, I don't know who to believe, but all my sugar's gone. And Mithril's like, you don't believe me. I thought we were bonding. This is why I never trust humans. And he flies away and he runs away crying. And she's like, oh no, I didn't have time to explain. And now I'm all out of sugar. And now I lost one of my new potential friends. And Jonas is like, it's okay, there's more sugar apples along the Blade Highway. Just leave him. If he wants to come back, he'll come back. We could just come back. We should just keep moving forward. And so they do keep moving forward, and there's like a montage of 2 to 3 days of Jonas helping her pick more sugar apples and making more sugar. And after a few days, Mithril still hasn't come back, and Anna's thinking about him while she's trying to make her entry for the exhibition, and she's like, I don't even care if he stole it anymore. I just want my friend to come back, my little fairy guy, Mithril. She's like, okay, I gotta focus though. Like Jonas said, I'm gonna make something that my mom will love. But then Hugh's voice in the back of her head is like, don't imitate her. She's like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to make. And as she's like frustrated, Jonas comes in once more to shoot his final shot. He's like, hey girl, I'm going to ask you one more time. Can you please marry me? I love you with all my heart and soul. Let's see if you can deny this. And he leans in and tries to kiss her without her permission. She slaps the mess out of him because what are you doing? And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. Well, oh well. I will never propose to you ever again. I really apologize, Anne. Have a good night. She's like, whoa, that was really weird, but good night. And then Kathy comes in later and she's like, hey Anne, girly pop, girl to girl, you should really accept Jonas's proposal. And she's like, no, Kathy, I don't know if Jonas sent you in here, but no, I really don't want to marry Jonas. I'm really sorry. And Kathy's like, no, I don't really want you to marry Jonas. Listen, I don't think you're good enough for him anyway. Jonas is actually perfect and beautiful and amazing, and you're not even good enough for him, but it will make him really happy, and that's what I want. So I need you to go ahead and give up your autonomy and marry him. And Anna's like, oh my god, you're in love with Jonas, aren't you, Kathy? And she's like, what did you say to me? You absolutely not. I would never be in love with a human. Humans and fairies can't fall in love. Are you stupid? And she runs off like blushing. Kathy is like, oh, do that. And Anna's like laughing and all teasing. She's like, oh my god, imagine a fairy being in love with a human. That's so cute and adorable. And then in her mind, she thinks of Shal and Liz, and she's like, oh, what if Shal was in love with Liz? She's like, oh, why does my heart hurt when I think about that? That has nothing to do with me. I just need to finish up this piece and then go to Lewiston, and then I can give him back his wing and we can just be friends and everything can be normal again. So she finishes up her piece, something that she thinks her mom will absolutely love. It's an intricate design with butterflies and flowers, and it's huge and it's beautiful and it's shimmering and it's shining. And then when she comes out and shows Shal her piece, Shal is like, oh my goodness, I knew you were an amazing sugar artisan because your hands always smell beautiful and sweet, just like sugar. And Jonas is like, yeah, thank you so much. That piece in there looks absolutely amazing. Thanks for making it for me. She's like, what do you mean making it for you? This is my injury. And Kathy, out of nowhere, dumps a bucket of blood on Anne's dress and then quickly disappears. And Jonas runs into the carriage and she's like, why am I covered in blood and why did Kathy just disappear? Why did Kathy just disappear? Because there was a pack of wolves chasing Kathy who are now have their sights set on Anne. And so Jonas, now in the carriage with all of her sugar, her submission, and all the blueprints for the submission to try and say that he made them himself, drives off and is like, dang, if only you would have loved me, then this wouldn't have happened to you. See you later, sucker. And then Shal is fighting off the wolves, killing them all one by one, and she's like, no, Shal, go get the wagon instead. I'm ordering you right now to go get the wagon and save my confection now. I have to send my mother up with this confection. Get out of here, go. And he's like, I'm not going to abandon you. I don't care if you hate me. I'm going to save you instead of your confection. And so Anne does survive, and he kills all the wolves. She's ultimately defeated. And so, episode 4, The Fate of the Royal Medal, dun dun dun, begins on possibly the lowest note ever. Anne is alive, but covered in blood, surrounded by wolf corpses, losing her will to live, losing every form of motivation possible, enters her depression era. She gives Shal his wing back, and he's like, what are you talking about? Why are you giving this to me? We're not at Lewiston yet. And she's like, I don't care. I give up. Life is pointless. You're free to go. And so he's like, oh, sweet. So he grabs his wing, and he hightails it out of there, and Anne is left alone. As if her luck couldn't get any worse, it starts raining, and she starts crying. Everything seems hopeless, and she starts yelling into the air, why did my mommy have to leave me all alone? And then we get into this like super happy anime intro that does not fit the theme of the episode at all. But you know what they say, life goes on, and so does Anne. So the next morning comes, the rain has cleared, the sun is up again, but Anne is still pestered with complicated, troubling thoughts and feelings. She's walking around wondering what she should do. She's all alone, no more Shal, no more Mithril, no more Jonas, of course, and no more Mom. And she's looking at all the things around her, wondering what could give her motivation, what could give her a sense of self, and her gaze lands on the berries of a tree. Turns into a fairy. It turns into a cute little tiny little fairy that would have been a labor fairy had it been caught by anyone other than Anne. And Shal appears out of nowhere and is like, hello little fairy, this human just brought you to life. What's your name? And the little fairy is like, my name is Lusa Elmin. And Shal is like, no, you should probably go somewhere else. Anne is a really nice person and she's special. She's different from other humans, but if someone catches you, you will be enslaved and one of your wings will be taken away. And she's like, oh, snap, I didn't know this was the type of world we're living in right now. And she flies away and thanks him. She thanks him and flies away. And Shal is like, hey girl, what you been up to? I bet you're wondering why I'm still here, huh, since you set me free. Well, the thing is, you promised to make me a sugar confection and I haven't forgotten, and I'm low-key really hungry right now. She's like, okay, whatever. I have nothing else to lose. It's not like I'm saving this sugar for anything now. So she goes and she makes a sugar confection. She's like, I'm going to make something my mother will I guess I've given up on my mom's dream, so I'll just make something that I think is pretty. And she makes a little statue of Lucille El Min, the little fairy that she just created. She's like, okay, I guess this is somewhat of a parting gift. And Child is like, this does look like a delectable treat. But since it's mine, you know, you gave it to me, and since I'm free, I'm no longer under your command, I'm going to do whatever I want with it, and I think I want to, submit it in the exhibition under your name. So that's what I'm gonna do. And she's like, you can't do that. I won't let you. That's my confection, and I already gave up on my dreams. He's like, well, you're not my master anymore, and I can do what I want. And what I want to do is be your friend and help you win the exhibition. And so this fills Anne with new life and new hope. So she goes to the competition, and then she's like, oh snap, I'm covered in blood. So she puts on one of Jonas's old shirts that are lying around. She enters a competition, and the guards are like, not only are you late, you have a puny little entry, and you're wearing a shirt that looks way too big for you. Are you poor? Are you a beggar? And then here comes the reveal. Hugh, remember Hugh from the Doctor's Inn? He steps in and he's like, hey, she's with me. She could come in. Let her enter the competition. And they're like, okay, Sir Mercury. And Anna's like, oh snap. All that stuff that Jonas was talking about suddenly raced back into my mind. This isn't just a random Hugh. This is Hugh Mercury of the Mercury School Workshop. The Sugar Master Viscount for the King. Which is kind of dumb in my opinion, because Jonas, how is this your dream? You don't even know who the current Viscount is. So stupid. But Anna's now in the competition, and Shal is watching her from the front row. And so Anne and Jonas make it to the final round of the competition. They're the chosen. Anne and Jonas are chosen as the two finalists for the competition. Mind you, Jonas has Anne's stolen piece, so technically Anne made it to the top no matter what. And then the king is like, I'm going to be the final verdict and say whose confection is better. So King Edmund II looks at both confections and he's like, you know what? I think Anne's piece is better. It's more beautiful. And Anne is like, oh my god, am I about to win? But then the queen pipes in and she's like, the best one. However, it's too tiny. The confection has to be the centerpiece for the festival. Therefore, this one wins. And she picks Jonas as the winner. And so Jonas is like, yay, I won. I'm going to be the sugar master. And Anna's like, no, I lost. All of my dreams are over. But then remember when I said they have to inspect the sugar barrel, they go to inspect Jonas's sugar barrel and it's completely empty except for a little fairy. Mithril is in an empty barrel after eating all the sugar. And they're like, what the heck? We can't inspect this. A fairy ate it all. And Mithril, he wakes up. He's like, what happened? Oh, I can tell you what happened. Jonas stole Anne's designs and confection. Both of those things were made by Anne. Jonas is a cheater and a liar. And Jonas is like, that's not true at all. In fact, this little fairy's in cahoots with Anne. That's her fairy. And he was like, listen up. I don't know how to prove either of you are innocent, so let's go back to the drawing board to figure it out. Just like the inn, I'm going to have you two make a confection, except you're going to make it right in front of me, in front of everybody. I want you to replicate one of these butterfly wings that's on the winning confection. And so they're like, okay, period. And they get to work, and instead of being like, okay, I need to make something that my mom will love in order to win, she looks over at Shal, who's like in the front row of the crowd, and she's like, no, you know what? I'm just going to make something that I think is beautiful. And she starts making the wing, and it's looking gorgeous. But halfway through, he was like, cut it. We don't even need to roll the tape. And Anne looks over at Jonas. He's flopping. He can't remake this thing. He's not as good as Anne. So he was like, obviously Jonas did not make this. He lacks a technique, and you are a disgrace. So he turns to Anne, and he's like, you would win this competition. However, looking at the winning piece and looking at the piece now, I can tell those were made by two completely different artisans because you've improved so much. Therefore, the artisan who made the winning confection is not here, and there will be no royal medal and no sugar master this year. No winners! Hugh says that her improvements worked against her that year, and the queen is like, that's okay because I look forward to Anne participating in the exhibition next year. But let's get into this little cheater right here. And the royal family is like, you know what? Anne, you can choose how we punish this little cheater Jonas right in front of us. And she's like, I'll take it into my own hand. And then she smacks the mess out of him again in front of everyone. She's like, how dare you? You're a cheater, you're a liar, and you will never be good unless you improve. Period. So after the exhibition comes the Festival of Full Soul Day. Of course, this is what Anne was waiting for. However, when she meets up with Shao, she apologizes and she says, you know, I didn't win, so I didn't get the winning confection, and I can't send my mom up with a confection by a Silver Sugar Master, but I think my mom will be happy with what I'm able to do right now, and I'll always improve. But I did make this confection for you, so you're welcome to go and eat it now. And he looks at the confection, he's like, it's actually a little unpalatable. You know, I was hoping to eat something that was made by a Silver Sugar Master, not this amateur hour confection. So I suppose I'll just have to stick with you until you can give me a confection worthy of a royal medal. And then she's like, oh my god, are you saying you're gonna stick by me? And then she's like, and then he grabs her hand and he kisses her on the hand and he's like, I sure am, Anne. She said Anne. He said Anne. And this is the first time he's ever called her anything other than Scarecrow. He said her name. But before she's like, oh my god. And she's like, oh my god, you just said my name. And before he can be like, before he can do his little nonchalant, what are you talking about, little act, Mithril comes up and he's like, hey guys, I'm so glad Jonas didn't get away with everything. And she's like, and Anna's like, oh my god, thank you so much for, you know, jumping in. How did you pull it off? And apparently, he didn't even try and like prove her innocence. He just got really mad at her, so he ate all her sugar, and then he cried a bunch, and that tired him out. So he fell asleep in the cart and accidentally stowed away. And they're all laughing and giggling and having a good time as they walk on to their new adventure as buddies and travel companions. And that is the end of the first 4 episodes of Sugar Apple Fairy Tale. So, firstly, we must ask the question, did Anne Halford nail it or fail it? In my opinion, she ate that completely up. Iconic, love her. I really need a few time skips to get on board with this romance, but we'll see how it goes. Secondly, what about my journal? I'm not going to ask if I nailed it or failed it because I know I nailed it. So the question, as Shakespeare once said, to eat or not to eat, to eat or to eat, did I eat or did I not eat? Trust me, that is what Shakespeare said. I have a degree in English, and I believe I ate this up. I absolutely had so much fun. I love journaling. It's just a fun little hobby. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me journal it though, and if you guys have any other anime that you would like to, that you don't really want to watch but you want to like hear about in like a story time-esque fashion, drop it in the comments below. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do Fairy Tale at some point. That's going to be like the long one. Obviously I'm going to do more of Sugar Apple Fairy Tale to get to like a longer stopping point. I don't just want to do 4 episodes. Sword Art Online is another one that a lot of people don't want to watch, but it's kind of interesting. And then I will eventually do One Piece, but I don't give any promises for the near future. I have watched One Piece. My only caveat is I want to do something I've already seen so that I can make sure I say all the foreshadowy details. But yeah, so catch me in the next anime story time, which will either be a continuation of this, or Fairy Tale probably, or some other thing you guys say in the comments, or in the next nail art video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.